In this video, we will tackle about Russian formalism, history proponents, and how to use it in a literary criticism. Russian formalism is a school of literary criticism that was originated during World War I. Its practitioners were focused on the form rather than on the content of any literary work. The Russian formalists were students of literature or linguistics who were united by their interest in the difference between poetic language and ordinary speech. Their primary concern was with literariness, that is, what makes a text a work of art. They insisted that one could neither paraphrase an artistic work nor extract from it a basic message, since literary form was an indispensable part of that message. Similarly, they saw literary scholarship as a distinct, self-sufficient discipline, which explained literary works not as the result of psychological, biographical, historical, or socio-economic factors, but as an interaction of linguistic elements governed by internal literary laws. Now, let's take a look on its history and proponents. The Russian formalism is a school of literary criticism that originally arose in Moscow and St. Petersburg, who are the main groups responsible for the movement. Its practitioners focus more on the form rather than the content of any literary work. The Moscow Linguistic Circle was established in 1950 and was one of the school of Russian formalism. Roman Jacobson was a proponent member of the school, who insisted the difference between poetic and practical language. The second school is St. Petersburg, established in 1916. Viktor Shoklovsky was the proponent member of this school. The main interest in the school was the governing principles of literary text that makes it distinctive from other forms of text. Both the schools have one element in common, and that is language. Their interest was in the formal aspects of literature. This was a clear deviation from old concept in which content was important and not the form. Formalists regarded theme, personality, and mind of the author, history background, facts and realities, and external things. They regarded language more important and primary thing. They shifted the focus from content to text. They argued that literary language has a special function, to reinvigorate language. They viewed literary language as a fundamentally different from everyday speech. Formalists were of the view that art is not a spokesman of history background. The essence of literature is literariness. They believed that literariness, by virtue of its capacity to overturn common and expected patterns, could rejuvenate language. So what is literariness? Literariness is a feature that distinguishes literature from other human creations and is made of certain artistic techniques or devices employed in literary works. So what about defamiliarization? Defamiliarization is a term coined by Viktor Shoklovsky in 1917 in art as a technique. This means to see common things in an unfamiliar or strange way in order to enhance perception of the familiar. Different use of language is important than to use it ordinarily. Common things are taken and made different. When language is presented in a different and unusual way, it changes social facts and realities. Let's talk about foregrounding. Foregrounding, by formalists,
means drawing attention to how they see something rather than what they say. It is opposite of background.
What about literary device?
Literary devices were deviation from everyday speech. Formalists studied the special rhythmic patterns, syntax, structure, imagery that distinguish a literary work from other discourse. This is how to use Russian formalism in literary criticism. Let's take a look at the first stanza of the poem I Wandered Lonely as a Cloud by William Wordsworth. I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high or veils in hills, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils, beside the lake beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze. The scene that takes place in this stanza is one familiar to us. It consists of a man on a walk through the countryside who stumbles across daffodils. But it is presented to us through the familiarization. Look at how the simile of the opening line compares walking to a floating cloud, or the personification of the daffodils in the last line as they dance in the breeze. These are examples of how devices heighten the experience. Russian formalism is not interested in the content of the poem, but is solely the investigation of how these devices are used and the way in which they function within the text.
That's all, and I hope you learned a lot from this video.